Hey guys, OGalbina here, bringing you guys our WBE Week 8 PRs for the singles division. I, of course, am not alone. I'm joined by Shuckleking. You want to say hi?
Hey everyone, Shuckleking here.
But yeah, we're going to be going over the Week 8 games, how we thought they were, where we ranked the coaches in, standing and how they played and all that good stuff. And yeah, you guys should know the drill by now. But before we jump into that, I do want to implore those of you guys that are watching the videos, especially these WBE PRs, which pull a decent amount, to go ahead and hit that sub button. It's completely free. It's super easy, and you can always change your mind later. But yeah, are you ready to jump into the first game?
Yeah, let's go. Let's poke game versus fruit berries, I believe.
Yeah, so Pokemon ended up, obviously spoilers for all the games going forward, but again, I think you guys know the drill at this point. Go watch all the other games before you watch us say what was good and bad about them. But Pokemon versus fruit berries, AIM ended up winning 3-0 in this game. With Pokemon's, the way he's been playing this season, how good he is as a player, and Fruitberry's having a pretty subpar build team, and being a little bit newer to the game, this was kind of an expected game, but what I expect to happen kind of happened. Fruitberry's is really slow and passive team just got overwhelmed and taken advantage of by AIM's very fast-paced and offensive build. Something I really liked in his build in particular was the Sandforce Drill Bring. I thought that was incredibly smart. When you're playing a team that's fastest mon is Haxorus and they don't bring the Haxorus, I think a Sandforce Drill is definitely really cool and smart to bring, because there was absolutely nothing to switch into that Pokemon on Fruitberry's team. His switching was Xatu, which obviously isn't the best, and maybe him on top, I guess.
Yeah, him on top.
But this, yeah. But even then, it's like a 1 or 2 time check, and then from there, it's just Earthquake or Iron Head for the rest of the game, and that's pretty much GG at that point. But
yeah,
it was a very self-explanatory game in all honesty. Fruitberries, he did make a good play in the early game, clicking body press and predicting a what do you call it, next drill pivot on the Magazine, which was cool. So it was cool to see him make a play like that. Other than that, it was a very self-explanatory game. Just got overwhelmed by Pokemon's offense. I think the Kangaskhan was also a very cool bring. It was the one that was really able to take advantage of how slow his team was and just click Double Edge and Earthquake. And once Rocks went up, it was very tough for him to just deal with the physical onslaught of the team and stuff like that. And things like that. Even the Sylveon would have won the endgame very easily as well. So it was pretty self-explanatory. Do you have anything else to add on to this one?
Not really. Yeah, Fruit didn't play. Like, he had a couple plays here or there, but like there was just no way that he was gonna win this game. Like, even going into it, I don't think anyone had that expectations. He didn't play horribly, but again, he didn't post his side, so I can't really say too much about his thought process there.
Yeah, no, exactly, and it was kind of expected. Again, in draft, if you haven't drafted your own team and stuff like that before, speed tiers aren't everything, but having faster Pokemon to where your opponent can't just outspeed you with everything and revenge, and to where you're just in a position where you can never put up offensive pressure because you're being outsped and outdamaged the entire time, it's never going to be a good time. So
exactly, yeah,
that was basically what happened in this game.
Yeah.
But on to the next, another very, very interesting game, one that we'll have so much to say about. It's going to be Thatsa versus Nexus. Do you want to talk about Nexus's W?
Yeah, Nexus is so funny, but like, I don't think he had any expectations that that's what's actually going to play blindfolded. Maybe he thought it was just a ploy, but he should have known that that's what's going to be serious about playing blindfolded. So it was pretty funny that Nexus actually lost a couple of mons and was in fairly rough shape early on in the game. He almost lost a couple of mons, almost got swept by SD to Joy, honestly. Like, Heliolisk barely lived a hit. He was able to, Thatch was able to kill the Druddigon, so it was close, but Nexus also had a Rillaboom that just won the game. So not too much I can say about Nexus' win, but good Nexus was able to get a win out of it. And I think he still might be, and he is still in playoff contention if he can win his last 2 games. So it's good that Nexus is able to get this win with decent differential.
I think, like he said, he probably would have retired if he lost to someone who was blindfolded while playing.
Yeah.
I would have done the exact same. I saw the game, and I was scrolling through the playlist, and I saw Thatsa's, and I clicked on it, like playing WB blindfolded. I thought he was just like joking, or I don't know, like just somebody click on my video type thing, and I looked, and he was playing blindfolded. I'm like, I can't watch this shit, dude. I can't. I'm gonna explode. It was a really funny game, especially from Nexus' side. I about lost my mind. He said I lost 2 mons to a blindfolded man, like 5 minutes into the video, and I about peed myself laughing. It was hilarious. And the fact that he was actually playing a little better than he has throughout the season in that early game with the Decidueye, and ended up bringing it down to a 3-0, which was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was definitely a really funny game. He also reused the same team as last week, and the same team that he brought last week, and just his team in general got massacred by Rillaboom. It was like, it was legitimately nothing for him to do to not auto-loose them on, especially when Decidueye just died early game clicking Swords Dance and Sucker Punch. So
exactly.
it was bound to happen. Like, even when I saw the Decidueye claim 2, as soon as it died, I was like, okay, well, game's over. Like, Rillaboom should just sweep. Which it could have too, but he threw it away because he forgot to count the terrain turns because he was so shook that he was playing someone who was blindfolded and lost mons to it. So he threw away a point of diff, which if that ends up coming to bite him in the ass later in the season, I might die. Like, that's absolutely hilarious. The only like actual note on the game, it was cool to see Long Reach do something.
Oh yeah,
he was Ruskin Helmet Drud. Yeah, he was Ruskin Helmet Drud. And that was like the first time, like, I know Long Reach isn't a bad ability, but like you just don't ever see it do anything. And it was cool to see it do something.
Yeah, I don't even know if Nex really noticed that or not, but
nope, he didn't. I don't think he did.
Yeah.
If he did, he was too busy yelling about the fact that he was blindfolded and he was losing mons to a blindfolded guy. Which was very cool. So that's gonna be game 2. A whole 6 minutes in, we're 2 through. We're zooming through.
Good pace.
Heck yeah. Next up, we got Patty versus Feint. Patty took home a pretty convincing win this week, which is really cool to see for him. Winning 5-0, which is really cool. He's had a rough season. I think part of it is due to his builds, but part of it's just due to his build in general. Like, his team isn't the best.
Oh, I like this team. I just think his builds aren't that great.
Yeah. But something that just... this is another very self-explanatory game. Feint didn't bring a fighting resist when he had plenty of them on the team. He had things like Kofag on the team. There might have been another one as well. But no Kofag on the team. That meant that the Scarf Mienshao endgame was very, very nice. And I think that Patty positioned himself well to get it. He got up his early game rocks, and he got sufficient chip on things like Quag, which was obviously really, really nice, and was able to just click Drain Punch to the end of the game. I don't think I've ever seen a Drain Punch sweep from Mienshao.
No.
Scarf Mienshao. But it worked, and it was bound to happen, especially when he gives so much damage on the Quagsire early on. Not only did he give so much damage on the Quagsire, I forget exactly what it was in against, but he switched in hard to the Quagsire on some hit that 2-hit KO'd it, which is something that Feint, I've noticed, does a lot this season, is he'll switch hard into the Quagsire, he'll see it does a lot of damage, and he'll be like, oh no, that did a lot of damage, and he'll switch out and preserve like a 30% Quagsire, which he ended up doing that game, which just in turn allowed more chip on the rest of his team and things like that. Just really setting up for the Mienshao to clean sweep through, which was cool. It's good. It's a good confidence booster for Patty to see him, grab a nice win. And he shot up a couple spots on my list just because he played that way. He played that game pretty solid. There wasn't much of a fight from Feint, but Patty played what he did what he needed to do.
Yeah, exactly. I guess the question is, did Patty win or Feint lose? Probably. I would give the benefit to Patty getting a win, but Feint definitely had opportunities and didn't capitalize. And it was cool that Feint just went all out turn 1, was able to set up a Swords Dance and kill the Ferroseed, which Feint was saying was kind of problematic towards his team. Feint actually predicted all 6 mons that Patty was gonna bring, so Feint was prepared for what was gonna happen, which was weird because he knew what Patty was gonna bring, but didn't really bring a great fighting answer outside of Quagsire, which handles Mienshao pretty well, especially if it's Scarf Drain Punch, which doesn't do a lot of damage in general, but he had opportunities to keep Quag healthy the entire game. And you mentioned at one point that there was an opportunity where Quag came in on a Savali, and it actually wasn't a 2-hit KO with a multi-attack, but instead of recovering with the Quag, he made a double, I think going into Scizor on the Savali or something, and didn't heal up when he was pretty low. So he could have healed up there, which he needed to do because otherwise the Mienshao was such problematic. Basically that's why he lost the game. He had a couple opportunities to actually recover with Quag and just never did and made aggressive plays.
And the Scizor staying healthy would have helped him in the end game versus
exactly.
Drain Punch isn't going to do too much to Scizor either, so that going down really didn't help him either.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I've told some coaches that sometimes they just spam healing when they don't need to and gain momentum, but in this instance when you have a way you could 100% lose the game. You have to play safe in that regard. So yeah, he also thought it was in Scarth Miancho at some point. I forget what was in. I think it was a Lycanroc was in, which naturally outspeeds the Miancho. And he saw the Miancho outsped. He just assumed that his Necrozma had bad EVs, even though he like double checked and everything. So that was just being a little bit more aware of what your team is. But Fane is cool commentary. I like watching his battles, but just an unfortunate week, and definitely puts him out of playoff contention. I don't think there's.
He's had some good wins though. He's definitely surprised me in a few games.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I know he's generally interested about playing more competitive, so that's cool to see.
Oh yeah, for sure. But next up we have a doozy of a game. We have the first game of the season where someone lost more Pokemon than the opponent and still ended up winning. We have
Seabad. Fun games.
Yeah, Seabad versus James. Do you want to talk about James' win?
I guess, and I have so many notes about this game, and like a lot of it just because I just was making notes on this like as I'm watching.
It lasted so long. Yeah, no, that's exactly what happened to me. I was talking about every double, I was talking about every play, and then I look, I'm like a page long. I'm like, I can't talk about all
it's just a lot of bulk, for the most part. I feel like a lot of James's doubles and switches were justified. I don't always agree that the plays were justified from Seabad's side, but they worked out. But yeah, James early on lost his Conkeldurr to the Choice Banded Tracheon, and that like put him back pretty far. Oh, actually before that, he was able to he did a lot of damage with Conk. Like he got a big Drain Punch off on the Gastrodon and could have 2-hit KO'd. He was in pretty decent position early on until he lost the Conkeldurr to Banded Tracheon. And like there is no reason because James is such a slow team, there's no reason for him to run Adamant, or not to run Adamant. Like, I think Jolly Tracheon had a chance to kill Conkeldurr based on his HP, but Adamant 100% killed. So it just made sense that he was Adamant. So that was pretty unfortunate, especially because Amoonguss could have easily taken 2 close combats. So a little bit unfortunate there. Put him on a little bit of the back foot, but was honestly able to keep fairly decent pressure throughout this game. He was down on timer for the longest time, but maybe like with 5 or 6 minutes left, he like realized that it was probably going to go down to timer. So he had the long-term like view in play and was able to just make turns pretty quickly until he was able to get timer advantage over Seabad, and that was just the end of Seabad. If the game played out on Showdown, not really sure who would have won it. I think probably James would have won it. Obviously it would have been a lot closer, but yeah, just a lot of switches without rocks on both sides, which was unfortunate. But it was cool tech with James to have Psychic Umbreon. I don't think I've ever seen that before, but he got a little bit of chip on the Tracheon, so it kind of worked out for him.
Yeah, this game, I think the reason this game lasted so long, and I think it was a very aggressive game too, despite how much fat was played.
There were a lot of aggressive plays.
There was a ton of aggressive doubles and a ton of aggressive predictions, stuff like that, which is really cool to see in the WB, which you don't often see very often, where people are more so attacking what's in front of them, healing up on turns and stuff like that. I will commend Seabad especially for playing aggressive and sticking to his guns the entire game.
Yeah.
He played a bit reckless at times. There was a lot of times where he just stayed in with his Skarmory on the Rotom to roost.
Oh yeah.
Which hurt a little bit, but other than that, he didn't play inherently like awful. I think he played better this week than he did last week when he beat Fruit Berries.
Oh, I 100% agree. Yeah.
But the main thing that just made it to where he was never winning this game, and I think if they did play on Showdown, I think James would have PB stalled his team. I think the Skarm had like 2 or 3 roosts left at that point.
Oh, okay.
Also
yeah.
Was pretty bad. It might have been a little bit more, but I think James could infinitely switch and be in a much better spot.
Oh, definitely.
Between his defensive core opposed to Seabad's. But the thing that really screwed Seabad over was not bringing rocks. With how many switches were being forced that game and how many doubles there were, rocks being up on that side of the field would have either forced a ridiculous amount of chip on James's team and made those banded CCs with a tiny bit of chip on Amoonguss, a 2-hit KO and things like that. Or what it would have done is it would have forced a Rotom into defog turns, which would have also given him a little bit more momentum and stuff like that to where he wasn't having to make as crazy plays. So I think that literally just rocks coming would have made this game incredibly different for Seabad. I understand that it's hard to fit the rocks on the team that he built. I agree that the Skarm probably needed all the move slots that it had.
Yeah.
I think maybe having rocks on the Terrakion, though, maybe over an Ironhead, which was essentially useless in that game. I understand the reason for bringing it for Clefairy, but unless I'm absolutely insane, I'm pretty sure Banded Edge to it KO's Clefairy.
Yeah, probably.
So in my head, I feel like rocks may have been the move in bringing that, just because if you're going to be forcing a lot of switches, if you're going to be playing aggressively and trying to catch him on doubles and putting on pressure with your Banded Terrakion and things like that, that would have really, really helped out. It was just a few things in prep that I think made this game very hard for Seabad. Another one was the Gengar. Scarf Gar, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that bring.
I didn't like it at all.
And if you're going to be Scarf Gar, at the very least, I think you need Trick on it, too. If you could have tricked and crippled that Umbreon, too, game would have been much easier as well. Things weren't going to get his Heal Bell as easily or Wished Up as easy. He has a freer Terrakion on it because it can't really, I don't know. I feel like Trick would have been the move over, a couple of the move slots, maybe even Focus Blast, because let's be honest, Focus Blast isn't even doing that much to Umbreon, especially Spadef. Like, it's probably not even a 2-hit KO.
No, it's not.
Unless you get a ton of chip off on it. I mean, and granted, it wasn't Wish Tech, so I guess it could have potentially done pretty well.
Yeah.
In Focus Blasting twice and, with a little bit of prior chip, but your choice lock, so you got to make that prediction every time. And with a fat team like that, the moment he sees your choice lock, the moment he figures that out, he can pivot around your Gengar so easily. You can't lock into a move versus that team, in my opinion. I thought maybe even a Nasty Plot Gengar would have been great. There was nothing in his team that outspeeded it besides a potential Frostlass, which would have been a speed tie, and I don't even think James ran max speed Frostlass. So if he was, going for like the max Timid, if you get chip on that Umbreon, Nasty Plot Gengar went crazy in that game too. Or even just like a Life Orb set, or even, there was plenty of options outside of the set that he brought, which made it, pretty tough. There was also one play in the game where I wanted to mention really quick. There was a play where Seabad was in versus the No, he was in versus something, and he was expecting a Frostlass switch. I forget exactly what it was. I think it was the Umbreon, because he was in and he was going to be clicking CC, and he Ironhead expecting the Frostlass. When his opponent's Stone Edge resist at that point, because Conkeldurr was down, was Amoonguss, and he went Amoonguss, and it would have been put in either very low, or I forget exactly how high it was, but it would have been either straight knocked out or put in the red. So that was also very, very unfortunate. There was just
I had that.
a lot of really, really unfortunate circumstances, and you could tell Seabad was playing a little flustered because he realized, I can't break through this team no matter what I do. Just unfortunately couldn't. Maybe a toxic over counter on Gastron is another thing I would have brought. The counter was, I guess, cool in theory, but most of the time you're just going to be clicking your attacking moves or a toxic anyways, and forcing those heal bells and things like that would have been really nice for him. So just an unfortunate game for Seabad. It just shows, even with the advent of heavy duty boots in the game now, I still think hazards are a very, very important part of draft, even if it's not doing 25% to a Pokemon on a switch in or 50% to the Charizard. It's still very important to get that residual chip in order to put things in range and put things into a KO range. So,
exactly. Yep.
That's basically going to be that one. Was definitely the longest game by far. We can jump into Uzi versus Moet next, as I look forward on my notes, because I was looking at my page long of what do you call it. So Uzi ended up winning 3-0. I loved his DD Hydro Bring. I thought DD Hydro was phenomenal. In this game, Uzi played very, very solidly in the early game too. He made a really good double early game, expecting the Toad to come in on his, I believe it was Rotom Heat, getting into his Espeon. One, potentially, stopping any kind of Rocks play, as Toad could pretty much live one from anything, and getting that big Grass Knot off on it, and damage on that thing was huge because it made Rotom so much bigger of a threat. It helped with the Hydra in the end game as well, which was awesome. There was one play early in the game that I'm sure you probably will talk about too, but Moa made a play where he Calm Minded on a Rotom after seeing it Nasty Plot.
I didn't get that.
T-bolded and did like a ridiculous amount of damage just to be, 2-hit KO'd. Subtalk. That was the wrong game. My bad. Okay, but there was also a play in the game where Uzi protected on, I forget exactly which mon it was, when he had a very free Mega Horn, which was a pretty bad play,
on the Volibee, or it wasn't on the Volibee. The Volibee switched in.
The Volibee switched in, and then the Mega Horn would have done a ridiculous amount, either 2-hit KOing or forcing it into Roost turns, where you could take advantage of it from there. But Uzi realized that was a suboptimal play. As soon as he clicked it, he was like, oh crap, I should have Mega Horn. So that's completely fair. I think Uzi played the early game really well. I think he played the end game a little bit iffy. He thought the Toad was alive for about 20 minutes when he killed it really early on in the game.
Oh, yeah, that was funny.
So you just have to be aware of the end game and the pieces left and stuff like that, especially when unlike Gen 6, you can just click like, the plus button and see what's left on your opponent's team and stuff like that. But he ended up playing the end game a little bit iffy, especially around things like the Volcarona and stuff like that. But he ended up, setting up with a DG Hydra and putting himself in a good spot and, taking home a 3-0 win, which was, really solid. Besides that, a little shifty end game, he played the early game really well, I think.
Oh, yeah. And there's definitely a chance where Uzi could have lost to Moa with the bulk up Gallade.
Oh, yeah, he crit it. I forgot. Yeah,
the Tanger got the crit on, and then that it just completely turned the tides of Moa's commentary. That was pretty funny, but yeah, a lot of the early stuff you talked about in terms of like the opposite of Moa shouldn't have done it. Like, I didn't get why he let Seismitoad get so weak into a grass move from Espeon, where like grass move Espeon like makes a lot of sense versus the Seismitoad because it blocks rocks and it can do a lot of damage. So it's a combination that makes a lot of sense. Either have Rindo Berry or like Protect or something to see that coming, because it opened up Rotom Heat and Hydreigon like so well because the Seismitoad got weakened. The Hatterene, I don't know if that was a misplay or what he was thinking about the Calm Mind, but just not the right play there. Didn't make that much of a difference. But yeah, it was pretty unfortunate the bulk up Gallade wasn't able to do as much as it should have. I don't know if it would have won the game because Uzi had like Toxic Rotom till he's had speed and hit that, and then Scolipede at Protect, so he probably could have stalled out the Gallade, probably lost an additional 1 or 2 mons, but there was a way that Uzi could have still won even if Mo was able to set up a couple bulk ups, but it was just pretty unfortunate that had to happen. And just Mo didn't have enough firepower in the end because the Volcarona was no bug move versus the Hydreigon, so Hydreigon was able to just set up and win. So Moet's still in a great position to make playoffs. I believe he's 5-3. So if he wins one of his last 2 games, he's 100% in. If he loses both, he still has a decent chance to make it. So good for him. And I believe it gives Uzi a chance to make playoffs. I think he has to win his last 3 games. So he was able to win the 1. He's got to win these last 2 weeks to give himself a chance to make playoffs.
Keep in the race. There's definitely that last spot is very much so up for grabs. I don't know if it's the last spot or the last 2, but it's definitely
basically the last one. Yeah, because Moet's 5-3 in 7th place, so he could probably still make it even at 5-5. But Chimp's at 8th at 4-4. So if he loses the 2 games, then a couple people have a chance to overtake him.
Well, on to the next. We have 2 of the teams that are, I think, clinched at this point.
Yeah, they're both clinched.
Mm-hmm. And Viz and Otto. Do you want to talk about Mr. Visualer's win again this week?
Yeah, so Viz was able to win again, and like, it seems like Viz has just been playing pretty tough competition this whole season. Maybe I was just underrating him just because his strength of schedule is probably one of the hardest in the league. So I bumped him up to, what did I bump him? I bumped him up to 4 from 5 last week, or did I have him at 6? I had him 6 last week, so pretty nice for Viz, and he's in the top 4, so cool for him there. Kind of hard to judge this game just because Otto didn't bring a really optimal team, but he brought some cool sets like the Rocky Helmet, defensive Rest Sleep Talk Primarina. That's definitely a really cool set that did decent damage. There's really only one play that Viz made, and it wasn't even that great. Like, it was a good play, but it was more of an Auto kind of throwing. He let his Stormy get weakened by a Shadow Ball from a Palisand, and like, because Otto didn't have recover, the Stormy wasn't able to recover up. And at that point, I didn't see any chance that Viz was gonna lose that game. So he just had too much bulk. Didn't really have to make any aggressive plays at that point. Not that I was really an aggressive play anyway, because Otto didn't have a Shadow Ball resist. So, yeah, it's a pretty convincing win from Viz.
Yeah, for sure. You touched on a lot. Obviously, Otto didn't bring his A team. I was watching his team builder. He definitely wasn't, like throwing or bring some kind of meme build.
Not at all.
But he definitely didn't bring his most optimal team, which is completely fair. I've done so myself many times in the past. I think, like you said, the Starmie play was pretty bad by Otto. letting it take that shadow ball was very, very tough, because once that thing went down, plus him not really being able to position AG very well to break, because I thought AG also had a very good offensive matchup. Like, he didn't switch into AG very well at
definitely.
all. But the Rocky Helmet Prim being able to really chip that thing down with Life Orb plus Helmet, and I think 3 hits on the Helmet, Life Orb, stuff like that, really made it to where Viz's team was way too fat for Auto. Just really, really way too fat for it to deal with. Viz did get very fortunate in the early game too. He got some great sleep talk rolls for a minute until he got the rest on the AG. But again, I don't really think that mattered too much. And yeah, Viz just was able to. He's definitely brought. I think he's bringing his best teams, which I think may come back to bite him. Or he may. I don't know. He didn't really say. Yeah, he didn't really say.
Well, he had to win this game to like solidify playoffs. So I think this was a pretty serious team.
And versus, he also did versus MV last week as well. But it's also cool to see him prove that he's, beating the top players in the league and stuff like that. After losing to AIM a couple weeks ago, he's won 2 straight against 2 of the other top teams in the league and stuff like that, which is obviously really cool for Viz. 5-0 is very convincing as well. It definitely helps in the differential department as well.
Yeah.
And, once, basically what happened was once Otto let his 2 offensive, breakers get worn down and, take unnecessary hits and stuff like that, Viz was able to just kind of sit in front of everything. That's just kind of what happened this game.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, I don't get it, but, like, I don't understand why I would bring the best team every week, especially because Otto is explaining it at his team builder that whoever it's reseeded every week, and it's kind of like how Overwatch League does their playoffs. I don't know if you watch Overwatch or not.
No, I don't.
But
how do they do
basically, so the top seed, which is MV right now, he gets to pick who his opponent is for the rest of the playoffs. So, like, and then whoever's the second seed gets to pick from everyone else besides whoever MV picked. And then the third seed picks from the remaining, and then the fourth seed is just that default last one. So, like, being able to pick your opponents in playoffs, like, for every round too, just seems so beneficial. So I would try to aim for that number 1 seed. I don't care if I reveal teams, if I could choose my opponents.
Yeah, if you could. Okay, well, that's fair. I didn't know you could do that. I'll be honest, I did not know you could do that. Yeah, that definitely changes things for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting format. I like it that way.
I mean, it rewards good regular season play.
Exactly,
which is really cool, because, like, a lot of the times, like, if you're the 8 seed and you just get a nice easy run in your matchups and playoffs, you can still take home the championship from a 1 seed who went undefeated plus 28 diff on this season. So actually, I think that's pretty cool. That's interesting. I've never seen a league do that.
Cool. Yeah, no, I like it.
But on to the next.
Yeah.
We have Callum versus Magnitude. This game was, in my opinion, kind of like what you said with Patty and Feint, where was it more so that Callum won, or is it more so that Steve kind of lost? I don't think Steve played, like, super bad.
Oh, you don't think
I think
so?
that I'm being nice. Steve's got to work on the tilt. You could tell from the early game not really working out in his favor, especially when he made a couple pretty bad over predictions, like the psychic play, which I'm sure you'll talk about.
Yeah.
That from there he played very, very passive. He was just kind of, I don't know, man. It's a really tough to analyze this game. Callum played great. I mean, nothing to take away from Callum.
100%.
He made a really,
I have him up to 3, my power rank.
Yeah,
so
I have him up.
to
I have him
4,
up in the top 4 as well. So I think the fire punch play early in the game with Grim was very aggressive, very nice, and I think that's one thing that we can take away from Callum's season in general, is he's not afraid to make the prediction, which I think is really awesome when a player comes back to Mons and they're confident enough to make those plays consistently. And from the point in which, like, that psychic play happened, the game was pretty much over. There was really no way for Steve to get back in that game. Callum played great. He pivoted correctly. He made nice middle grounds, and he made the aggressive play when he needed to, and he won. But I'm sure you'll talk about Steve and how he did stuff like that in your side of it. But what did you think?
Yeah, so Steve didn't have that bad of a brink. Did I help him this week? No, I wasn't able to help him this week because I was busy. Because I don't think I would have suggested Scarf Bear Scooter when it has Aqua Jet. But no, it's like he was playing for the Magic Coat lead with Comfy on a Vikavolt to like get webs. So that was a pretty cool tech and idea there, even though like Tentacruel could spit him away. I guess he knew how problematic. Oh no, I did help Steve a little bit with this team, but because I remember saying, why don't you bring Defog? And he said, well, just have Magic Coat. And I was like, well, if you set him to get him up like later in the game, then you're completely screwed. To a PZ, because Cal's just been playing PZ pretty well this whole season. Just get up webs plus have PZ in the back. He was able to do that to Nexus. I don't think he even got PZ in that much this game. Like everything else was able to do a lot of damage. Yeah.
Yeah, he just didn't need to.
Yeah, but it was good that Callum was able to 2-KO to Ferrothorn with Fire Punch. But I think Magnitude was thinking that the Grimmsnarl was scarfed. And I don't know why you would make that assumption that a scarfed Grimmsnarl when he goes for 2 Fire Punches in a row on a Ferrothorn. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. And then he loses his Chandelure to the Grimmsnarl when he clicks Psychic. He probably, like, he still probably would have lost that matchup because I imagine the Grimmsnarl would have lived one hit and killed with Sucker Punch afterwards anyway. But just the thought process didn't make any sense. And then later, so like, he played over aggressive then, and then later in the game, he was able to flinch with the Como on the Grimmsnarl. Otherwise, that would have been like a blowout, even more than what it already was if he didn't get the flinch on the Grimmsnarl. But Steve was able to get Como in on Cabaliad, and like, I didn't understand why he didn't just Dragon Dance. He went for a Drain Punch instead when there was a Tentacruel in the back that probably had Liquid Ooze, and it just wasn't able to do enough damage. So like, there were plays where he could have been aggressive and made sense to be aggressive, and he didn't. And there were plays that he was just aggressive but could have made better aggressive plays and didn't. So I just didn't understand this at all. He also EQ'd the Vikavolt with with the Drapion, I think. He Earthquaked the Vikavolt. So I don't understand some of these plays. It was just unfortunate. But good for Callum to get the win. Pretty convincing. And he's played, I guess, some of the lower ranked people the last couple weeks, but what was it? He was able to 4-0 his last 3 weeks, so that's pretty good for differential as well. He's like solidified in playoffs. He might even get a top half seed, so good for him.
Yeah, I've been very impressed by him this entire season. I like his draft a lot, not because it's like, the most fundamentally sound. It's definitely very HO oriented.
Sure.
But it looks like a lot of fun, and I was worried as a player coming back to draft after a pretty long hiatus from what I remember. I was wondering if he would be able to play it aggressively enough. He definitely has this season, so it's obviously really cool for him.
Yeah, for sure.
On to the last game, MV versus Chimpact. Do you want to talk about this one in MV's W?
Yeah, MV was able to win the game even if he he definitely didn't bring an optimal team, I guess, but he is aiming for the win. And as I was saying before, I think you should be trying to win these games to solidify that top seed so he can choose his playoff opponents. That'll be pretty interesting how he's gonna go about how that whole process is gonna go about, like who he would pick and all that, if it's team matchups versus player matchups, so versus people he's played this season versus maybe people he hasn't played, if you'd prefer that. But yeah, so Zeraora was a little problematic for MV because Lantern wasn't able to break Zeraora's sub, and I've encountered this at least 2 or 3 times in my draft league career, having a Lantern against a Zeraora, just making sure you have enough investment to break subs. So that's just stuff you get with experience. You can't really fault that necessarily. His Gunk Tank had a Corrosive Gas, which was pretty cool. And actually, I don't think he expected to really do much at all that game, but he was able to remove the Light Clay from Klefki, which I wouldn't have assumed that would have worked, just because it's a Steel type and Corrosive Gas is a poison move, so I wouldn't have expected that to work. So that was pretty neat that I guess he knew that was the case, or I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure Chimp also didn't know that was going to happen, so good for him. Dragapult, Broken Mon, shouldn't be allowed in draft. Was able to 2-KO to Crocodile, which was with Dragon Darts, which is nice. And then, he figured out the Zeraora was very slow on Chimp's Fire, which I understand, but if Rezion had speeds, that's kind of weird. Maybe he didn't expect that Verzion to come, just because I don't think MB's really brought it at all this season. But Virizion was able to beat the Zeraor, which was pretty cool, and then Dragapult, which was able to win at the end. Gyarados did get a Dragon Dance up, but Gyarados, I don't know if you'll talk about it, but it was kind of a 50-50 at the end on Chimp's part. If he went for a second Dragon Dance, he probably would have won the game, but he also didn't know first that MV was so physically defensive bulky. And again, because Dragon Balls so broken, it could easily have been mixed with Thunderbolt to kill the Gyarados. So it was kind of tough for Chimp to go for the second Dragon Dance there. I think probably the right play was just trying to go for the kill, even though there was no chance it was going to kill based on MV spread. So good work for MV. He's I think he keeps pace with Joey at 7-1 and has higher differential. So if he could win the last 2 games, I think he pretty much guarantees getting number 1 seed.
Yeah. So as for Chimp, I don't think he played this game very bad necessarily. I also don't think his matchup was very nice at all. His Pult matchup was like abysmal. That's for sure. The only thing, like you said, the Zera being slower than Vriz was very brutal. I think the end game would have been a little bit nicer if he wasn't. I understand, maybe being really aggressive and trying to get a lot of bulk out of it, but I don't know if you need that much bulk. You can even be aggressive enough to, catch a Dragapult creeping, next lowest Mon or whatever it was, which I think was Sigilyph. So, he didn't even really necessarily need that much speed on it. So I guess maybe he was creeping Sigilyph. But,
yeah, probably.
Not creeping the Virizion because he just didn't expect it, but...
Yeah, that's fair.
That came back to bite him a little bit in the end, but not the biggest deal in the world, in all honesty.
Sure.
I thought that he was able to keep up hazards and keep up rocks potentially pretty well, especially in the early game, because while with Skuntank being the defogger and Crook being the rocker, every time it comes into defog, Crook just comes back in to set up rocks again, and there wasn't really much that the Skuntank could do to stop it, which put him in a pretty good position in the early game. He played pretty solidly with his Klefki and Virizion, stuff like that, and pivoting around it, potentially clicking fighting move or grass move or Stone Edge and stuff like that. He made a very good mid ground early in the game when Virizion revealed Stone Edge for the first time, and he went keys on it to absorb that, opposed to the the Sigilyph, which was also very cool. I think he positioned himself in the end game well. Actually, I thought he was potentially actually going to win that game. I didn't think Pult was actually going to live. I didn't run the calc myself as I was watching, but I was like, oh, dang, if he's Ice Fang over Bounce, because Envy was very much so tripping about Bounce Gara, but Ice Fang was definitely the bring over it, because the fact that it hit Gara and it still hit Virizion very hard. It doesn't OHKO it at +1. Yeah. But if you get the sufficient chip, it's going to do a lot. Virizion is the bulkiest Fizdef Mon in the world, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So he was able to position himself really well for the end game. Like you said, it came down to a 50-50 of sorts. Because if he knew he was Dragon Dance, and no electric coverage, nothing to, OHKO or anything like that, then his play was definitely to Dragon Dance again. But in that situation, I think I would have made the same play that Chimp did, just because one, like you said, you don't know if he's mixed. You also don't know that he's max Fizdef. He wasn't very HP invested, but he was max Fizdef. He was max Fizdef almost. So based on that damage, I assume an offensive Dragon Ball could have even potentially been OHKO by that +1 Ice Fang from there or something. Plus, you also have to keep in mind there is not only the flinch chance, but the free chance. I think it was in Chimp's best odds to go for the Ice Fang. Personally, I would have made that play too. It's just that the Fizdef Pult came up clutch. When you got that much speed, you could be really fat and annoying, which is another reason that Pult's just so ridiculously good in draft, because a Mon with mediocre bulk becomes a Mon that can chew a +1, Gara Ice Fang with absolute ease, which is really cool. So again, I don't think Chimp played bad. I just think Envy had a very nice, solid defensive build, just like this whole season, that just wasn't really overwhelmed by Chimp's very hyper-offensive build that he had with the screens offense, SD Lucario, stuff like that. So
yeah, just
good for
Chimp,
him, obviously.
I feel like Chimp could have brought Snorlax this game, though. I felt like that would have been pretty decent.
To help with the Pult.
To help with the Pult a little bit more, yeah. But otherwise, I did like Chimp's team this game for sure.
Oh yeah, but that's
hopefully he can make playoffs. He's 4-4, so there's definitely a chance that he misses out. But I think he's definitely in a
if he can clutch up his last 2 weeks, he'll be fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Who did he play his last 2 weeks? I don't remember.
I do not have the website pulled up.
It is. He plays Feint Attacks and Nexus, so probably a decent chance he can get at least one win. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's going to be our week 8 PRs. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. I agree, I disagree. You guys are idiots. You guys are really smart. I like the really smart comments, but tell me if you think I'm really dumb too, I guess. But yeah, let me know if you guys enjoy the format and all that stuff. Next week we'll obviously be on Shucklekin's channel, so go ahead and drop a sub over there, as we'll try and get those up pretty soon after Week 9 games go live tomorrow. I'm gonna try and get this up today. But yeah, any other parting words?
Yeah, I don't think so. No, it's gonna be an interesting last couple weeks. See who gets the top seed in playoffs, who's fighting for that last seed. So should be some good games to finish off this season.
For sure. But yeah, be sure to drop a like on the video, and again, sub if you haven't done so already. Really easy and completely free, and I will see you guys in the next one. Later.